Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox.Space. What? Tom, you just broke my intro. What are you doing?
Get wrecked.
You're killing me here. All right, episode 19 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I'm your host, Chris, joined as always by Baby and Pumpkin, who are around here doing things. And, of course, we have a special guest. So this week's special guest is Tom. Tom, you're joining me. And not
special.
Not that I don't want you, and not that I don't love you on the show, but all our other special guests are all sick. So
Ross is more special than me. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, I know. Come on now. But yeah, so we got a lot of sick people out in the world, COVID and colds and all sorts of other stuff. So it's just you and me today, Tom. You ready? Can you handle it?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. Yeah, I'm good. I'm game. Ready up in the queue.
Okay. Well, we actually have got some kind of fun stuff to talk about today. Nice. You know, we're kind of, oh man, I just clicked on an ad.
Taking a break from depressing news.
Yeah, even though I did see that we're not putting it in this week's episode, but this morning when I woke up, I saw Take-Two is doing a round of layoffs and canceling some games. So, wow, Pumps.
Oh, that sucks.
What do you want?
Kind of a echo of the last time I was on. So weird.
Yep. So we're gonna be a little bit more positive, but yeah, we got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about. Before we get going, let me do this. Okay.
Go goofy on my coffee so Bob Ross can be seen.
All right. So let's do that. So the PC Gaming Show returns June 9th to celebrate its 10-year anniversary with the most exciting new PC games. So this is from PC Gamer. Ted Litchfield is the author on this. The opportunity to share news about some of the most exciting upcoming PC games is also special for us, but this year's PC Gaming Show is a little extra special because it's the show's 10th anniversary. So that's pretty exciting. June 9th. That'll be fun. I don't know if you ever watched the PC Gaming Show before, Tom?
I think I caught it like a long time ago. I mean, it's been around for a long time.
This is the 10th anniversary, so.
Right. Yeah, so it's probably like it probably was like seven years ago or something when I last watched it.
Cool.
Glad it's still going on. I mean, kind of surreal. Like, yeah, like how much, like, I don't know. Again, it's like it's an interesting time, like with like kind of the PlayStation being able to outmuscle like performance of PC, like and really like the software that people use to build the games like is so cross-platform that it's kind of weird to think of any game as like a PC game versus just a game. So it's kind of a fun. I hope they keep the name even if everything gets molded into one crazy Uber platform.
I think there's always going to be PC. PC is the foundation, I think, of the gaming world.
I'll have to check it out. At least until like Apple gets on board and makes it a lot easier to play all these games that won't play at all on them. But there's like at least one company that makes their entire living off of just getting like non-Mac applications and games to run on Mac.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, I'm not a big PC gamer. I'm not anti-PC gamer. I just I like to just be able to grab a controller and start playing. And so the only real thing I play on sort of PC, which is on my MacBook, would be World of Warcraft, and I haven't played that in quite a while here. But I mostly play console stuff. What?
If I ever play WoW, I'm gonna either play it with a steering wheel or with a Guitar Hero controller.
I'm sure that'll work very well for you.
I gotta cap myself so I don't get addicted to it. I gotta pick a non-standard input device because otherwise that game's gonna hook me.
Yeah. So
you don't want me to play WoW. That's the thing. No employer I have ever had or will ever have wants me to ever play WoW. So I respect that, and I've never played WoW as a result.
Yeah, I have enjoyed my time with WoW, but when I went back recently, I've even more like enjoyed not playing WoW. Being able to play games on my PlayStation and being able to play like multiple games instead of one game that just like eats up all of your time.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I've had way more fun with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth over these past couple of weeks than I did at any of my recent WoW playings. So that tells you something. Okay, so
Yeah,
next
it's
up,
like that and Pal World just packing so much content in that you can kind of just play that game for a very long time.
yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of like because I don't really need stuff to do to occupy my time, right? Like time is a precious commodity, and what I like is, a game that can keep me interested and enthralled with the story, but also has like really cool mechanics or something in it. And so, yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing. So this is from Games Radar. From Catherine Lewis. Overwatch 2 players baffled after accounts get suspended for swearing, as Blizzard customer support reiterates that profanity has never been allowed in our games. So, Overwatch 2 players have been left confused after discovering that using swear words while playing the game can potentially get their account suspended. This was first flagged after a number of Twitter users took to social media sites to ask why their accounts had been suspended, to which they were told inappropriate language and profanity, if reported, is grounds for suspension. So, responding to one player asked why my account keeps getting punished, customer support says that would be profanity, specifically liberal use of F-bombs in chat. Profanity isn't allowed in our games, not explicitly, not abbreviated, not masked or misspelled. F-bombs in any form are not acceptable. So,
I guess StarCraft and Warcraft players already know the score here. But I think my thought is like, okay, clearly their operating apparatus for enforcing this is caught up to, I guess, the scope of the problem, because you can say that's not allowed, but like, unless you got like really dumb, easily bypassed filters, or like yeah, like maybe they're using AI now, like maybe they got AI like scanning all the games and like able to flag more appropriately like whether something is in fact profanity or not, because I mean it gets so tricky if you got people talking in other languages where they just have a word like German's got some words that are profanity in English, but it's just a word in German. So it's like if somebody's
sure.
just typing in another language and happens to trip over a dumb filter and gets banned, like that's going to be bad. But if they're like able to say, yeah, like we can target actual like aggressive uses of profanity that we don't like want to have in our game, and know that it's not like a misfire, and be able to like handle the scope of the input of that, because I gotta imagine, I mean that's a huge amount of like just chat data to parse. So kind of to me, it seems like they either got like a really good non-AI system, or maybe they started using AI for this or something. Because if we haven't heard about it getting enforced, I mean, Overwatch had no shortage of profanity. All those games have like an in-game settings that does like mask profanity, so that's like on by default or
In
whatever.
text, yeah, but not,
In text.
yeah,
Oh, and
not,
voice chat.
yeah, not in
Yeah,
voice.
that's got to be AI then. I mean,
Oh,
or
I don't
yeah,
know if
very
this
sophisticated.
is this voice or is this?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'd be extra like impressed if it was voice that they were detecting profanity in voice. Because again, with the foreign language issue, like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, are you going to enforce every foreign language's profanity in their native language? Like that, it's such a hard problem. So if they're like, that's the kind of thing you turn that switch on when you're absolutely sure that you're gonna catch every case and handle them all fairly.
Yeah.
And yeah, they obviously got their customer support team on board, and just like
Well, I think
that's really interesting. How
Bli-
long ago?
Blizzard's thing too is that a lot of their players are younger. So even if you have a filter, for example, like the filter just turning it off or on simply blocks the word from appearing in text, right? But doesn't give you permission to use the word, you know?
Right. Well, it would just show up in the same whatever, it would asterisk it for you as well if you used it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's like if you go on, like I never turn on profanity filters, right? Because I'm not a little baby, but that doesn't mean that like because I turn the profanity filter off that I am now allowed to use that language, right? Like the language is still restricted within their community, and of course we'll mention again that, but like you do not have a right to free speech in corporate
Private
settings,
sector, like space, yeah.
private sector stuff. So like they can decide the rules and how they wish to apply them, and it sounds like they might be cracking down a little bit harder on it, as we're all aware.
I was more of an Overwatch 1 player, and I can tell you they were not enforcing profanity whatsoever.
I mean, I played Overwatch 1 a little bit, but I never typed. I only did voice stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I think they would only step in if you were like blaming an individual, like if you were just harassing somebody with profanity, like that. I think that's about where they drew the line. But it's context is pretty important. I mean, and it's so subjective what's offensive. Like it's different for a lot of different groups.
yeah,
And
I
I'm sure their policy end user license agreement spells out what counts as profanity, or they have it somewhere in like some Byzantine documentation somewhere that nobody's reading.
Their 300-page terms of service. Yeah, I mean, I think that's you are correct. I think that obviously profanity and just general being offended is very subjective. But I don't think that's really the conversation, right? Like Blizzard doesn't sit around, and I mean, they probably do, like what is and is not offensive to the vast majority of people, or like they're having that conversation. But the conversation us as the users should be having is just like, hey, this is their dance. If you want to come to the dance, you play by their rules, and it doesn't matter if you think it's offensive or not. And you can completely disagree with Blizzard if you want to, but this is the rules. You got to be this tall to ride this ride. That's
kind of comes in, yeah. And it doesn't sound like people are being banned permanently for profanity.
Yeah, it sounds like suspensions.
Yeah, I mean that's maybe a warning or something, because it sounds like they started enforcing it full force immediately and being like, yeah, it was always our policy, we just haven't been able to enforce it until now, which is, I mean, that's their right to do that. But I mean, Blizzard's not, I mean, they have plenty of PR issues, so I'm sure they're not super worried about what people think of them banning people who use profanity.
Yeah,
and it sounds like it's temporary, so people can just cool off and come back and find different language to use.
And this might have, I don't know if this does, but I mean, we can sort of venture a guess. If you say, and I believe you, that this sort of stuff wasn't as highly, we'll say, corrective action was not taken on a lot of this stuff, right? Some of this might have to do with they're now owned by Microsoft. And Microsoft generally has a more sort of structured, corporate, strict philosophy on a lot of stuff. And so maybe this might have been a thing from Microsoft where it's like, hey, you guys, your chat's becoming a cesspool. You need to start taking care of business here.
Yeah, I would expect Microsoft much more than Blizzard to be capable of processing that much data and making those calls like semi-fairly. One thing that's like interesting is that they would ban the player from playing the game rather than just simply disable their ability to communicate. But they're probably like thinking, well, if we disable somebody's ability to communicate, they're probably just going to start throwing or something. So they just want to avoid that. But like in theory, like, you can play the game silent. There's tons of people who choose to play the game totally silently all the time. So it's like you just become one of the faceless mass of players,
Sure.
not communicating. think with the voice chat, that is tricky. Like if you disable somebody's voice chat because they're using profanity, that does get into like an actual gameplay aspect of that game because it is so squad based and callouts are really important at the higher levels of play. So if you're just down in casual, then yeah, usually, I mean, in Overwatch 1, I just had voice chat disabled unless I was actually in a squad of like friends or people I knew, just because it's going to be like somebody being toxic that their squad isn't like hive minding with them,
Mm-hmm.
or just yeah, somebody who's like not using it anyway. So then that would be tougher call to be like, yeah, we're gonna block your voice chat in a game where, very likely it's an integral part of succeeding in the game, because if your team isn't communicating and the other team is, then you're probably gonna lose. Um, so it's that interesting call. But for text chat, yeah, like it seems like that would be an appropriate like first step. It's like, we're just gonna block you from using text chat, and if you come back and keep doing it, then because like the game doesn't need text chat at all. So like, I don't know, it's just interesting there. But yeah, like, yeah, we'll just see. I think it is interesting that it's such a huge data scope problem. So I think they just weren't enforcing it before because they had no reasonable way to do so other than user reports. And even that is like backlog, and like how much analytics do you put in a report to be able to prove it. So they usually grab like the last minute or whatever of the match, and that might not show a pattern of like habitual, like, if they've been toxic or aggressively targeting somebody, or like being racist against or like sexist against a player for like multiple matches, then the report's only going to show like the last minute where maybe the straw that broke the camel's back happened, like the most egregious thing that actually got them reported, but it wouldn't be capturing like the entire pattern and stuff. So you can get like somebody whose first offense gets reported and they get banned, and then you get somebody who's did it a whole
Sure.
bunch and never got reported. So if they got
Sure.
ways of detecting it without having to rely on user reports, then that could be a really, like, that's probably a good thing for the environment. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Or you could just not use the N word and play games
yeah,
like a normal human being.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
but that wouldn't be the gaming community now, would it?
Well, we can aspire for better, and if we need RoboCop to
Yeah.
twist
There
some
is
of our arms,
there is a
like,
part of
then good.
me this sounds silly. There is a part of me that kind of likes the jovial nature of like trash talking and stuff. But also I think it's like many things in life. It depends on kind of the
Yeah,
intent and where you're coming from. And a lot of the stuff is like literally just people trying to be cruel or mean,
yeah,
as opposed to
yeah. There's
like when we were in arcades back in the day, since you were right next to the person, there was always that kind of like intrinsic understanding that like trash talk was a part of the game, but it was almost like a meta game in and of itself, right? Like you were trying to kind of like joke back and forth with the trash talk as you
yeah,
were playing the game. And
yeah,
and most of the time, yeah, of course, like there was assholes and stuff out there, but most of the time the trash talk, even when it got like, somebody said something or like, whoa, like it was kind of done in good fun in conjunction with the
yeah,
game itself. But I think you lose a lot of that in the virtual space. And then of course you've just got a
yeah.
bunch of people that are intentionally trying to be cruel.
Easy to depersonalize, and then the only information you have about somebody is their username and their like voice and how they choose to make their character look or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I think there's a whole spectrum of like friendly ribbing trash talk, which is like you actually like the person, and you would, you'd be happy if they got better at the game or sport or whatever, so you're like kind of ribbing them to like push them to like light a fire under them or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, and
And
like
that, and that comes out of like, I think coaching culture, like team sport culture,
mm,
has a lot to do with that. Like got coaches who are, or the military like boot camp and stuff, where
sure,
the trash talk has the purpose of like, if it's too much for you to handle, then like, it's sort of designed to make you crack sooner than you would without it. That way they can see, oh yeah, like they're trying to mentally toughen you up as well as physically. But yeah, if you're just trying to put them down or demoralize them or throw them off their game, then you're being toxic, basically.
Sure. And also, sometimes you just want to play a game. You don't want to go to boot camp every night, right? You just want to play a game.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a part. I'm not advocating for this, but coming from where we are, it's like you'd play the game, you'd be trash talking, and then at the end of it, you'd be, high fiving or whatever, good game, GG kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting, but Blizzard gets to decide how they want to control it, and I mean, the talk on a lot of these games is awful. Like it's just people being mean for mean's sake. No, it's not even creative or anything. It's not like there's no like witty repartee bouncing back and forth where you're trying to like jib at the other person. It's just straight cruelty. All right, let's go to the next thing here.
It's not funny to be shocking. It's something that's part of growing up and
I think that's like with comedy and stuff. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is like shock for shock value doesn't really work. Like maybe it'll work once or twice in the beginning, but like unless there's some sort of like interesting wit behind it or some place that you can go with the joke, then it just gets boring. Like it's just like, oh, okay, you said something offensive, but like were you making a call out? Were you referencing something? Were you attempting to like combine two threads of ideas together in some kind of way? That's what good comedians are able to do. So they might say something shocking, but it's because they're tethering together a couple ideas in a way where you're like, oh, okay, all right. Well,
it's hard to eliminate because just one last point is that like there's also like nonverbal trash talk, which has been around in gaming culture forever, like teabagging your opponent in a first-person shooter or whatever. And you're just not like, there's always a way for somebody to be toxic. Like I'm thinking like Rocket League, you've got like the quick chats, which are all supposed to be positive and encouraging, but then people contextually, they say what a save, and that's gotten to the point where I don't know if Rocket League themselves, but most of the esports apparatuses around Rocket League consider that to be toxic behavior that they will like kick you out of the organization for. So using the in-game,
if it's used sarcastically or something.
Yeah, exactly. Using an encouraging quick chat sarcastically is considered toxic and grounds for like removal.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's like a self-enforcing thing because like how's the developer gonna be able to tell if you're using the quick chat sarcastically or not? Like, so it's something that's just a long-standing gamer culture thing that's you just gotta if big tech can help us get closer to making people behave and just play the game and treat each other right, then
or you just need to get good, I guess.
Yeah, like we get everybody gets neuro-linked and we all have an empathic connection to whoever we're playing online games with, and we understand each other's struggles subconsciously, so we all treat each other better. Let's go.
What a world. All right. Next up, keeping in the Activision Blizzard sort of thing, I guess. Former Blizzard president suggests you should be able to leave $10 or $20 tips because some games are that special. When I beat a game, there are just some that leave me in awe how amazing the experience was. Subaru writes, this is another PC Gamer article by Ted Litchfield. At the end of the game, I've often thought if I could give these folks another 10 or 20 because it was worth it more than my initial 70, and they didn't get a nickel and dime me for every second, and they didn't try to nickel and dime me. So, thoughts. This article popped up, and of course the internet does what the internet does best, which is they jump down this dude's throat.
Yeah.
And they started complaining. They're like, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, so I have this thing, I always talk to them. I'm sure there's like some actual term in language or whatever, but I call them like dead sentences, where you have this statement, right? And then somebody will respond with something, and then you just sit there, you're like, okay, like, how did that help the conversation in any way, right? You see that a lot of times in politics and stuff, but people need to be careful with, I think, dead sentences where you're like, oh man, we should really do this, and be like, yeah, but then the money's just going to get the blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like
did that contribution help? You know, we're talking about we should be
yeah,
giving money to charity. We should be helping feed the
yeah, like
homeless. And they're like,
having a
oh, but
talk and then like
yeah,
are we
it's
gonna try to wrap this around back to the conversation? Like
yeah,
that's a
and
lot of work.
a lot of
Like
time it's like it's an obvious answer. It's not helpful. So in this case, a lot of people are being like, "Oh yeah, but none of that money is going to get to go to the devs." And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, obviously, if you implement a tipping system in the game designed to tip the developers extra money for their contributions, then all that stuff would be handled in the background. So like it goes without saying that if you're implementing a tipping system that doesn't actually tip the developer employees, that's not a tipping system we're talking about. That's not what this guy is talking about. That's not what he was intending to say. So like pull your head out of your ass a little bit and like read the room, you know? So ignoring the sort of internet nonsense trolling on, you know, let's just assume that there was a system, you went and you played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and at the end of the game, you are required to beat the game before you can even do this. And they're like, hey, you know, maybe it's not even a pop-up. Maybe they're just letting you know that, like, maybe it's done through Sony's system or Steam or whatever, right? Maybe it's done through the platform in some way. And it's not really, like, bugging you. It's not like a pop-up that's constantly bugging you, but it's just like, you beat the game. You have access to New Game Plus. You've got access to this additional material. Also, you can tip. If those tips were guaranteed to be distributed to the employees that worked on the project and not just go into the coffers of the company, what are your thoughts or feelings on that?
yeah, that'd be sweet. I mean, yeah, like you have to have some pretty elaborate like it because like I think the most complicated thing with direct to employee type stuff is like how does the formula work for people coming and going? Like, you know, as somebody who had a few months on the project and hasn't
Yeah,
been with them for like years,
I imagine
like
it would function like the back end of TV and movies, so royalties associated with that. So
yeah, I don't know
maybe it's
much
like
about royalty.
it could be something where it's like, you know, hey, and all this crap would have to be figured out, right? Like, I don't want to get too in the weeds on the logistics here. This is more high level, but you know, maybe for every full time month, you know, every full time month you worked on the project equates to like 1 unit, and every part time month equates to half a unit. And then when the project is done, you just add up everybody's. You know, Tom worked for 3 years on this project. That's 36 units. And then
Gotcha.
and
That
then
makes
when
sense.
and then when that money goes in, it's just distributed evenly by the number of units. You know, I'm just throwing an idea out there, right? But
Yeah.
this stuff can be done. It's already done. Royalties are already done in publishing and other media.
Yeah. Like one of those, yeah, like can be very silly. I'm sure like if it's the kind of thing that starts happening. So I want to make a quick tangent that at first I thought this was like the active president who was making this statement. I'm like, that's really funny. But a former president, that's a little bit less funny just because they don't have like a such an active personal stake in like
Yeah.
getting more money for the company. But yeah, like you know, it seems like unless it's some kind of standard process that everybody gets on board with kind of equally, seems like it'd be the kind of thing that'd be very specific to each game. It also feels to me a little bit like the big AAA companies who it's a little bit silly for them to just put out like a PayPal donate button or something, and they just like want a way to have some kind of equivalent engagement with
Oh, we're going to talk about something like
player
that
base.
coming up here too.
Okay, cool. But yeah, like it's like because I feel like those questions can be easily lobbied at like a PayPal for a little indie company. Like you don't actually know where that money's going. You don't know that the person in charge of that PayPal account is going to share it fairly or report it to the team or whatever. Like so,
Yeah.
it's all an act of faith. So I mean, if they can do something to like
That's
show that they have good intention with it.
Yeah, that's what I think. If like, let's say PlayStation did this and there was a tip button on the PlayStation Store, I think part of being able to turn on that feature for a game or a company, they would have to follow, like they would have to adhere to a set of rules established by PlayStation that, like, you know, this money needs to go out in this way. You know, no more than 5 or 10% could go towards the company as administrative costs or something like that. You know, whatever those sort of rules are.
Like the property manager of the office where the company works or whatever. Like you got to cut it off somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably want to at least give some percentage to the corporation as a whole because they did in fact take the risk.
Yeah, every project's more than the sum of the individuals. It's the, you
Yeah.
need the cohesion and the corporation
Yeah.
structure around it.
Yeah, the corporate structure provided all of the tools and the assets, and the people did get paid for their time. And you know, theoretically, if you're sort of a Adam Smith Wealth of Nations libertarianish believer, then they were compensated fairly. You know, and when you look at that sort of, I'm not advocating for or against that. I'm just saying when you look at a free market idea like that, you are getting paid for your value in time, and whatever that value produces over the long run is not really your concern. The argument is generally like, oh yeah, you created the thing, but you were paid to create the thing, and you would have not created the thing if there wasn't another person or corporate structure that provided that opportunity for you, right? So, I mean, and this is going down a rabbit hole for sure, but I think we've seen plenty of developers, indie devs and stuff who have made cool games, but their game didn't sell because it turns out there's more to being successful than just making a good product, right? And so you need the marketing and the project management and on the administrative infrastructure and all of that. But all that
Granular
again,
word of mouth, it means like maybe you'll be a cult classic in 10 years, but will your company even exist when your game becomes popular? Like,
yeah. And I am a big fan. I do think that particularly in the AAA space that it's a lot harder to do in the indie. Strangely enough, it's harder to do in the indie space, but it happens more often where the individuals get compensated directly for the success of a project. I think whenever you're doing any kind of creative effort, the success of the project should also be shared with the people itself. So, you know, I think there should always be some sort of revenue share model or bonus structure for these kind of things. But
I think it incentivizes a lot of everybody doing their best at every level.
Yeah. But going back to this, I'm not against the idea of tipping as long as it doesn't become obtrusive, which I'm sure it probably would. And it's not one of those things where it's like nowadays. I mean, the generic argument is, everything you do now when you pay with a credit card has a tip line associated with it. You know, restaurants. I mean, you go to the gas station and buy something, and there's like a tip line. You're like, dude, I just bought cigarettes from you or whatever. Why am I tipping you? This idea of like everything being tipped. And I kind of feel now,
because some people just will, and so why would you? If some people are just going to spontaneously tip for no reason, then it's like,
yeah, you're leaving money on the table. Well, the thing is like that's actually very what would be the right way for
pervasive?
Yeah, I mean it's pervasive. I'm trying to think of the right word without coming across as too cynical. Because
it creates its own incentive.
Well, yeah, I mean, in essence, it's sort of a measure of force, right? By simply putting it there, you're like sort of not tricking people, but you're making people feel bad. You're like, well,
all these other business models that don't do it, or like,
you should be tipping when you buy this thing. Like, even now, it like I feel that twinge. Like, I don't tip, for example, if we go and get pizza and I just pick it up, I don't tip for that, right? Because you just made the pizza for me. But that line is there. Now, if I'm eating at the restaurant, then I will tip because you're theoretically paying for the server's efforts, right? Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot of people that just tip for everything nowadays.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of expected.
Those are our mobile gaming whales and things.
Yeah.
They just have so much disposable income that they're like.
But even outside of that, like food trucks, for example, like should you tip at a food truck? Like that's kind of weird. They're just making the food for you. Right. Mm-hmm. There's no real server or anything. Right. So that's kind of like an interesting, like, and some people would be like, of course you should tip at a food truck. I'm of the belief that like we shouldn't be tipping at any of these things. We should just build in the wage into the cost of the food. And then people are like, well, everything's going to get so expensive. And I will call bullshit on that because my favorite restaurant and Athens, Ohio doesn't accept tips. If you tip, they take the money that you tipped and they donate it to a local charity. And they don't accept tips. And their food is like crazy reasonably priced, and it's really, really good. Like it's good quality food that tastes good. And you can walk out of there, like you and another person, you can walk out of that eating 2 full meals, an appetizer, and like 2 or 3 drinks each for like 25 to 35 bucks. And no tip.
Yeah, nice.
You know? So like
Yeah, and
it can be done.
yeah, part of it is this like it's starting to bleed into business models where it hasn't traditionally been because of like spontaneous tippers and like just people like looking over and like, oh yeah, and like the credit lines all doing it by default, or like it's probably like a setting you can disable, but it's on by default or whatever. But the other thing it sort of does is implicitly it kind of pits the customers against each other, because guaranteed the service providers are like mentally registering who's tipping and who isn't, and
Sure.
it kind of like becomes like a thing where if they are used to people tipping, then that like they start giving those people their standard of service, and if people come in and don't tip, then they're going to remember that and give you like, that's the idea people have when they're tipping, I think, like some people.
Yeah, but even
like,
that is
yeah,
kind of perverse, right? Because the idea,
yeah, because servers do know when you tip. They like
the
remember
idea of a
you and
tip
stuff. Like,
is that you are supposed to give extra money for exceptional service. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to be penalized in service because you failed to tip.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Like that's where that gets perverse. Yeah, for sure. And with like the games, I can kind of see like a thread of this where, yeah, I'm in favor of it in theory, like on paper. I do worry, like especially for like details, like, oh, you have to beat the game first. Like I feel like if this becomes like common practice, like that's gonna like really discourage like games going for like crazy controversial endings. Like I'm just imagining like Mass Effect, like if they had tipping during like when Mass Effect came out, like how many people would be willing to tip for like 90%
Yeah.
of the game, and then just like they'd see the end and they're like, I
Yeah.
hate this.
But I don't
I
think
regret ever playing this game. Like,
I see what you're saying. I don't think Mass Effect thought their ending was going to be as controversial as it was. I think they actually
yeah, for sure.
I think they originally thought that their ending was pretty solid, and then people were playing
Yeah.
it. Maybe there were rumblings within BioWare from like the rank and file where like, hey, I don't know if this ending is going to work as well, and like the higher ups are I'm totally blank on the guy's name who wrote it now. I should know that. Losing my street cred, but yeah, because one of the other guys, the first guy who's like writing on Bioshock on Mass Effect was like Cash Bershirin or something. I don't remember how you pronounce his last name, but he only wrote for the first one. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I think that you do have to be careful. I think you're right that if there is another mechanism for it will absolutely happen. People are like, oh, that won't happen. They're still going to make the game they want. I was like, no. Look at the way games are designed now, where content is expressly withheld so that it can be put into a DLC or an expansion or something. Like, people make these decisions like that, and sometimes, again, it's not like. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't have the time or the budget to put everything in there, and so you're like, okay, we have to cut scope to get where we want to go. But then some games will intentionally provide artificial barriers into the play so that you do have to pay extra money for something.
Yeah. And those are my main asterisks. Just like it might influence the creativity right before whenever that tip is going to appear. Like they're going to want to make sure they maximize whatever emotional experience you're having right before the tip. I feel like that's just going to be subconscious. You're not going to be able to pull that out. And then I think the other part, my other thought is I think it works the best for games that are just a simple game that you buy and that's it. Like if a game has a bunch of DLC or they have like recurring like cosmetic things you can pay for in the game, it feels very weird to tip them when you could just spend your money to get more in-game content. But yeah, for all those like, especially like indie darling single player games that are like $10 and they like, 4 hours or something, and you're like emotionally changed for life, and you're like, I want to buy the game again, and I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably
give
tip
more money.
I'd tip Square Enix an extra probably $10 or $20 for FF7 Rebirth for sure, because I think
that's been like historically how the customer expresses this and like tips is like they'll like just buy the game again under a different account for no reason.
Yeah.
But that's like such a weird thing. So yeah, having a more direct way to just say, like, this game was awesome. I mean, what I feel like
It'd be cool too if
those
you could
metrics.
loop in, like, let's say you did buy a tip and then a DLC comes out down the road. Maybe that like could be credited towards your DLC purchase. You know, they're like, hey, we don't know that I'm just giving you a tip because I like the product. I don't care about the DLCs or whatever. And if a DLC happens to come out and you give me credit for it, cool. That sounds great. But, you know, there's no expectation of it, right?
Yeah. And there could be a nice back and forth of,
Yeah.
sorry about the furnace installation behind me. It
No,
could be
it's
a
all
nice
good.
back and forth between the players and the devs to be like, oh, we're getting a lot more tips than we expected. Like, it's almost like when a Kickstarter goes above its target, like, the devs could be like, oh, wow, like, people are really responding and
Yeah.
giving us money. Like, we could turn that into, like, more content or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of
So
like buying an unspecified
I think
content. Like,
I just think you should put in the money if you think it's interesting. So let's jump to this because this is another thing here. Very similar to what we're talking about. Ubisoft responds as Star Wars Outlaws comes under fire for Jabba the Hutt Season Pass exclusive. This again is another PC Gamer by Sean Prescott. Star Wars promoted, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about this. There is a single player Season Pass incentive attached to the special editions for an extra $40 for a total of $110. The Season Pass gets you 2 post-launch expansions, some cosmetics, an exclusive day 1 mission called Jabba's Gambit. The latter bonus triggered widespread fuming as it was possible to jump to the conclusion based on some perhaps ambiguous wording that the mission was the one and only Jabba the Hutt mission in the game. To clarify, Jabba the Hutt and Hutt Cartel are one of many syndicates in the Star Wars Outlaws and will be a part of the experience for everyone who purchases the game regardless of edition. So there was some confusion here, but what do we think of season passes for single player games?
forced tipping.
Force tipping?
Yeah.
Uh,
You really care about this game a lot. You're willing to go above and beyond. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like an in-game version of like getting a collectible object in like a big box because you bought the collector's set. Like it's, yeah. I'm not against it. I think it's kind of, yeah, like people's proclivity to just be like assuming things based on the first thing they see.
Yeah. I'm a simple man.
I don't care that much about Jabba the Hutt, so I'm like,
yeah, whatever. I'm a simple man, and I think that you can make sustainable companies by making good products that offer value without having to have tricky monetization schemes and whatnot. Now, I do realize that our expectations as gamers, game consumers, is a little out of whack right now. Our expectations of what games should do and can do for the price. I think we need to kind of reel that in a bit. But along those lines, I also think like we've seen plenty of great experiences, including in the single player space, that don't require, you doing these like weird ass things, right?
yeah. I'm trying to think of like the converse of what they're doing, which would be like, oh, if you only play the base game, then every NPC just gets like a red clown hair and a clown nose. And it's the same game, but because you didn't give us the extra money, we're gonna take away your emotional impact, and we're gonna make the game less serious for you because you didn't go for the gold edition or whatever. And I feel like I feel similarly about that. I feel like like, yeah, I mean, if people, like it's a bit gougy for sure, but it's the developer's choice. I mean, if an indie dev did it, people would be like, oh, that's funny. But it would also probably be like the cost difference would probably be a lot less. It'd be like, oh, $20 for the base game, but give us 25 and we take the clown noses off of everybody. When a AAA does it and the game's already $70, which, let's talk about history. I mean, I think with the people's conception about what a game should be for the price, I think we're doing a lot better these days because if you adjust for inflation, the prices are the same as those old NES cartridges. But back in the day, you could definitely get some stinkers on like some real stinkers that were like sealed and approved by the platform, the publisher, like the critics, but they were just like really bad games that you
Sure.
wouldn't want to play, and you spent 70, the equivalent of $70 back then on it.
I mean, what
And
was
or actually probably
this?
still more because they cost like $50 back then, right? Or like
Yeah, they were $50 for a long time, then became 60, and now we're at 70.
yeah,
So we're still like
but
dollar for
70 now
dollar.
is like less than 50 then,
Yes, that's how time
right?
works.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, that right? Like so we're getting better value
Yeah, we are getting
proportionally.
we are paying $10 more per game, but we are getting much better value, and the budget of games is exploded,
Yeah,
particularly
the
AAA games. So
internet's been big on that because like back in retro gaming days, if you bought a bad game, the best you could do is maybe complain to the game store where you bought it from. Like, yeah, you didn't have a direct line to the devs to be like, you're trash, your game is trash. Like, you didn't have like
yeah,
reviews getting disseminated around the world. They were all like gatekept by like gaming magazines and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
news traveled slowly and could be filtered by many different parties.
There was a mentality back in the 80s and 90s in particular where everything was just sort of so exciting because they were just like new ideas coming out in games and new technology was propelling it, even in movies and stuff. It was just so many creative people doing all these like really cool creative things, and nobody quite knew how to like properly monetize any of that stuff. Like they would just sell you a game and you'd buy a game, and 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 so even when you bought something that was crappy, like most of the time you could see that like, oh, the developers were like they were trying something, or like they were being creative and it didn't work and it kind of sucked. There weren't like as nearly as many just like straight up. I mean, in the early '80s with the video game crash, yes, but I'm talking about after that, and sort of the console generations the way we know it now, starting at like Nintendo on.
Mhm.
And
It's,
you just knew that there was going to be like other cool stuff. Now there's just like, I mean, the idea of shovelware, right, is like quaint almost by the amount of crap that's in like the mobile space. It's like, what are we, like dump truckware, or like, like they're just creating so much garbage stuff. Now again, most of it's free, I suppose, but
yeah, asset flippers and stuff, but
yeah,
usually they get dogpiled enough by the community that they don't get too far with it. But if you're just one person asset flipping and you trick like a few dozen people and you got a few dozen titles, then you can make a living off of that, unfortunately. Um,
sure.
but the Being distracted by the drill sounds.
Oh, we don't hear any
The
of it on our end.
Okay,
So
good. I've been maybe while I'm talking, I don't know. But anyway, um, I mean, the video game crash. A big part of that was like because people didn't really understand what the effort was to make a game, so that they were just making deals and agreeing to things, and then they didn't have the manpower to pull the games off. So you end up like the ET game, massive blockbuster movie license tie-in, and you basically got like a walking simulator that killed you very quickly,
mm-hmm.
because they just didn't have they were making agreements they couldn't back up because they were just like, oh, it's computers, it's magic, we can just throw the art in and it'll just go. And now it's almost more like that. So it's funny because like the just the community perception of what games could do back when they actually didn't have the manpower and the knowledge and the resources to make good experiences, people just assumed the best and like gave everybody benefit of the doubt. And now that there are like really long-standing practices, tools that have been crafted over decades, institutional knowledge among like millions of devs,
Mm-hmm.
and just like the weight of just the history behind it. Now people kind of will assume the worst and they've gotten a lot more cynical about it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting how the difference between perception and reality Because back then it led to the crash because the perception was so different, and now it's like inverted. So it's almost like a, I mean, we're still in a something of a bubble, but I mean, it's like it's very strange. It does this match up with many other like industry economies. I feel like is
Yeah.
usually it's just simple product is good or not. It's way less subjective than with games because it could be a fantastic product, but you just hate it and you spend a bunch of money on it and you can't really complain because it's like high quality, but you just
Well,
wish you hadn't spent the money on it or something.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Like,
there's a couple like layers to that. The first is like it could be a fantastic product that's maybe just not for you, right?
yeah.
And I think that falls onto you where like you need to realize that like not every product is for you, right? And I've seen plenty of terrible movies where I'm just like, all right, I saw a movie.
Actually, that's a really good point.
I saw
Like,
a horror movie a couple weeks ago where I was like, okay, I think this would be a fun, scary movie if I was like a 13-year-old girl, right? Like that's what that's the audience that movie was going for.
mhm.
And I didn't know that going into it. I just kind of went into it, right? The Barbie movie, I think, is another example. I think the Barbie movie is great, but the key, and I hate to say the key demographic for that movie, but I think the sort of empathetic connection it's trying to make is with women and young girls, and looking at their life and their connection to Barbie. And it brings up sort of the complications of that relationship, and that it's not always been super positive or the best. And yes, you are supporting a giant multinational corporation, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that Barbie can't mean something to you. It can't be a part of who you were as a girl into a young woman, and that you reflect fondly on as an adult woman or a mother or whatever. And so I went into it not really knowing. I go into movies and I don't want to know anything about them. Like, I don't even like looking at trailers. I do the same thing for games. People are like, did you see the new blah 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 trailer? I'm like, nope, I don't want to see it. I'm not interested in seeing it. And after about like maybe the first 15 minutes or whatever into the Barbie movie, I was like, oh, okay, I think I see what they're trying to do. And so I just went along for the ride. I felt like I was like a special guest invited into like a girls' night, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so this is not my party. This is not my slumber party, but they're letting me hang around and have fun. And so I just viewed it as like, well, let me see my through the lens of a different kind of world perspective that than what I have, right? So that was one thing. And
Unfortunately, everything's getting sucked up by culture war and things that
yeah,
have nothing to do with the art.
but I
So,
think all of that ties into what I'm saying, which is like you need to realize not everything is for you. And the idea of people talk about this all the time, critical thinking. They're like, the world needs more critical thinking. And it's just like, shit, dude, you don't know how to critically think. You're saying you think you do because you want to feel smart or you want to feel right. Critical thinking isn't about feeling right. Critical thinking is about like really analyzing what is going on with, in this case, media, with games and movies and stuff. Like, what is really going on in there? What were the intentions from the creators? What was the process they went to make those things? What technical or social or creative challenges did they have that they needed to overcome? Like,
you don't know what's been on the cutting room floor. Like, nobody knows what's on the cutting room floor. What could have been. Like,
yeah,
it's
but you need to look at
impossible
like
to know.
what were they trying to do? What were they successful at? And I think a lot of people they stop at like, I didn't like it, and so here's all the problems with it. I was like, that's not you critically thinking. That's just you being a dick.
You stop it at the word critical, and you don't include the word thinking. So
And so there's plenty of stuff I need to get back to doing my rapid review site and doing reviews, but there's plenty of stuff that I've seen where I was just like, oh, okay, I see where they're doing it. Like I wasn't like I just watched Civil War. I'm still kind of churning on that. I'm just like, did I like it? Did I not like it? Like I'm kind of like really thinking about that movie, making sure that I understand its totality. And I think as gamers, it is a important part of our, if you really love the games industry and you really love video games, then you need to be a part of that process in a positive and constructive way, right? And I think also the big companies need to as well. Like, stop doing these like chintzy ass monetization strategies. Stop putting out games that you obviously know are not ready, and hopes that you can get money and then maybe fix it after launch, and then it never really gets fixed. You know, to
And ride on hype. Yeah.
yeah, to Cyberpunk's credit, I think you could argue that their new DLC, which again cost extra money, so you got to build that into the equation here, which I haven't finished yet. But a lot of people are saying that, like, okay, that brought Cyberpunk up to a pretty good quality standard, but it still wasn't where they kind of were promising it was gonna be in the early days of the promotions and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a two-way street here, you know.
Marketing needs to know actually what development is doing. Like, I don't know. Yeah, because you got to curb that, because the like people, yeah, it's like you're trying to woo an investor or something, but you're not. You're gonna you're all your messaging is going to like normal gamers who probably aren't gonna get the game on literal day one, and they're gonna hear from other people before they play. Like, what all your marketing is doing is like setting up the day one players to like hate it. Like, so
Yeah.
like really, it's like yeah, it'd be so much better if like, yeah, they, if anything, they should kind of undersell the game, because the people who are like, the game's got to have like, people are going to play the game for their own reason. They're not going to play it because the marketing video came out and like blew their minds. They're going to play it because they like your past titles, or you're a new player on the scene. They're interested in like the little scraps that you put out of like actual gameplay, ideally actual in-game content, and not like dressed up like you know, like edited presentation of some, gameplay, not, not necessarily accurate to the gameplay. And all you're doing is like, you're trying to get people to buy it. You're not trying to sell the idea of the game to them. You're just trying to get them to buy it, which is, people wonder like why the people are getting so cynical. They feel like they're getting kind of grifted by that model, and that's a very natural reaction. So
Sure.
hopefully can just have a more transparent industry where we're like, yeah, we got all kinds of limitations, we got all kinds of challenges, we can't do literally anything. uh like overselling is like such a toxin in the creative process, because you go back to like, oh well, we said this, we sold the public on these ideas, and if those are like impossible or like extremely unlikely to be finished in time, then that's how you get a game like Cyberpunk, where it was playable, and they needed people to trust and like
Loosely
hang on
playable.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, and that's because, again, we don't, you look at how the sausage is made, the design totality before those promises were made, and the design totality after those promises were made. I don't know how they, if they had to change their target, they could have literally thrown work away because it didn't align with their marketing, and they didn't realize it wasn't going to align with their marketing. That's how you get dev hell. I mean, that's how changing your target, and changing your target's so bad, because it's like, not only do you have to do this extra work to build your new thing, but you throw away all this other work that you did before your target changed, and it's terrible. It's like the worst thing you can do. And if you're like working on a game that people are passionate about, and then like the publisher or the marketers are like, oh yeah, well, people need X, Y, and Z, I don't see that in your design. You're
Yeah.
going to cram it in, because if you don't cram it in, they're not going to give you the money to make the game you're trying to make. So
Well, yeah.
tipping, please
On
save us.
on that
Save
on that
us,
note,
tipping.
yeah. We're at the end of our time here together. So thank you, Tom, for being on the show. This has been episode 19 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast, where we talk about video games and the game industry. I am your host, Chris. I'm here every week, unless I'm not. Baby and Pumpkin are over there. Interestingly, neither one wanted to be on my lap today, so it's just one of those kind of days, I
They
guess.
saw me on the screen and they're like, oh no.
Yeah. And then, of course, our special guest, Tom, thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure. It's always fun.
So a couple quick wrap-up things. A reminder to check out the GDEX Expo at www.thegdex.com. We're going to be posting a whole bunch of new information over the next couple of weeks. Our volunteer applications are up. We still have some exhibitor spots left if you want to exhibit, so I would check that out. And then I guess
Early bird over?
Yes, the spring sale is over. So that's done. But and then of course you can follow us on YouTube. So we post all of these up on our YouTube channel for the GDEX. And then you can go to the Sandbox.Space and sign up for our weekly email where we post the articles that we talk about today, as well as blog posts that I write. I'm behind a week on that, so I'm gotta do that. But yeah, this is a community that we're trying to build for people that are interested in game development and the games industry, to really kind of talk about the industry and see what we can do. Hopefully positively and constructively to make it better. So
leave us feedback if we're not talking about something that you think is super important. Like, we would love to.
Yeah. Give us tips. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, tip us.
Yeah, tip us. But yeah, so that's been the Sandbox.Space Weekly. We'll see you next Wednesday. We do our show every Wednesday on Twitch. Wednesday is 10 o'clock a.m. EST time. So thank you all for watching, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.